Hombre, Tony, ¿qué tal?
¿Qué tal, Marc?
¿Cómo han
Empezamos
ido,
temporada.
cómo han ido las vacaciones?
Muy bien, han ido bien. Aún me quedan algunas cosas pendientes, algunos días que vamos a marchar por ahí, pero muy, muy bien. Muy
Qué
bien. ¿Tú qué
envidia.
tal?
Yo ya lo he acabado todo. Ya me he fundido todos mis días de vacaciones, pero la verdad es que debería ser un derecho fundamental recogido en la Constitución, el derecho a la desconexión.
Pues sí, pues sí. Bueno, hoy tenemos a nuestro invitado, lo tenemos en sala de espera. Nueva
Primer
visita
invitado.
internacional, queridos amigos. Segunda charla en inglés. Así que, y además, bueno, hoy va a dar que sí, va a dar de sí, va a dar que hablar la charla que tenemos, la reflexión. Así que le damos paso, Marc.
Vamos a por él.
Hi, Joy. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a big pleasure to have you here. Marc, thank you for the introduction to Joy.
Yeah, actually, thank you, Joy, for joining us. It's been almost 10 years that we met at Cornell. So thank you for taking your time here with us today.
Thank you, Mark.
Dear friends, we're introducing to you to Mr. Joy Lahoud. Joy is LLM at Cornell University. He's attorney at law and very important for the issues we're living today. He is a Lebanese political activist. That's that's one of the main reasons that we have here Joy. So first of all, we are very happy to have you here, Joy. Thank you, as we said before. And as we always say, Café con Valores, this show was created to try to find common values worldwide. Today, we have the opportunity to talk about values from another country, Lebanon, which is unfortunately living a moment what is not the best for the country. And what are we going to talk about today, dear friends? Today, we're going to talk about what happened the 4th of August, the explosion carried out in Beirut. It was a huge tragedy. It was a sort of, actually, it was a sort of a micro-nuclear explosion. And we imagine there is something behind, Joy. There is not only a missile zone. There's something behind because there has been a lot of protest in the streets. So we would like to start asking to you, Joy, first of all, if you can explain us what is going on in Lebanon, because sometimes newspapers here tell us part of the story, but not the whole story. So we'd like to start understanding what is going on today in Lebanon. And besides that, we'd like to know why did the government resign immediately after this event?
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your concern, your consideration, and your interest in the topic of Lebanon. First of all, when it comes to values, we in Lebanon, as a result of our diversity, have had in the Middle East a unique way of life, a unique set of principles that is mainly originating from the West, mainly from the Western culture, mainly from Europe, and from the democracy that started there. What happened in August 4 was a result of the building of 30 years of neglect and disregard regarding those values. They have overlooked those values because of the complexity of our social structure, because of the uniqueness of our political regime. Those values were not respected. We have allowed the country to enter into a series of occupations. We are now under a direct occupation that is military manifested through the presence of militias that are immediately related, funded, armed by foreign powers, mainly by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So what happened in Lebanon is that the whole concept of institutions, the whole concept of democracy, the whole concept of an efficiently working state is missing. That is why the militias have allowed themselves to plant 2,700 tons of ammonium in the city of Beirut, in the port where our commerce and our business is carried out, under the feet of our citizens, just beside our houses, and they took us for like human shields. So what was the rationale behind that? The militia said, okay, let us put those explosives there. No one will dare to hit them because there are civilians. So the international community might go crazy on them if someone sends a missiles over those explosives. And they use them as a free zone for the smuggling of their weapons and for the tie between this whole territorial alliance from Iran to Iraq to Syria, reaching the shore of the Middle East that is Beirut. And this whole line is being free for the smuggling of weapons and the smuggling of illicit materials. And the port of Beirut was one of the most important logistics for them. So what happened there is, let us not go how it exploded. We don't have the answers yet, technically speaking. What we need to know is why the explosives were there at the beginning. How come a militia is ready to take the Lebanese people as a human shield to store very dangerous material that leveled the city? I cannot describe what was the blast like. It's certainly a nuclear weapon. We still have 50 people missing. Their bodies are maybe vaporized, I don't know. We have more than 300,000 houses that were demolished and people are like on the streets. And now we're going to talk about the values like compassion and values like that were demonstrated just after the blast that show how our society is amazingly united over the reconstruction of Lebanon. Just within few hours after the blast, you can see young people, students, women, kids, men, older men, working in the streets to clean and to start building again. This is a very important message we're delivering, and this is a very important indicator of what's coming to Lebanon. I believe we're going through a very dark tunnel at this stage, but later on we are starting to see the beginning of new values that are possibly going to build a great nation. However, at this stage, we are a totally failed state. Our institutions are absent. Our government couldn't even hold one single person accountable, because we will talk also about the value of justice, the value of accountability. We are at this stage in total impunity. No one is held accountable. We had officers working at the port who knew about the presence of the explosives, but couldn't talk about it because they were afraid of being assassinated. Because for 30 years, we have been living in a series of political assassination. Every time you speak out against the militias, you're done. They put explosives under your car. They put explosives on the side of the road. They send you messages. They threaten you with your family. So no one is daring to speak in Lebanon. Even if we had someone with some morale in the administration, they don't even dare to speak. So this is the buildup of silence, corruption, fear, terror that was behind the explosion that happened on August 4th.
And do you think, Joy, that this is exactly this last point that you pointed out? Is this the cause that that drove to the last government? Well, last government, like 3 weeks ago, decided to resign, or?
The last government had to resign because of internal pressure, because of our revolution, because of the huge impact this explosion had. It showed how much our administration is absent, how much this government is not efficient, how much this government is really a government that works under occupation. They put projects, they talk about fighting corruption, they talk about like reforming the whole state, and then there's always a sort of like force majeure that stands in the way of anyone who wants to work, especially that the militias are present in this government. They are represented in this government. They obstruct any type of work, any type of reform. In addition to that, there is the international community's pressure. What happened in Lebanon is a threat to international peace and security. It's not a matter only of Lebanon. It's not limited to the Lebanese population. It's a threat to the region. God knows how many explosives are hidden. God knows how many stores and storages are there in Lebanon. It might threaten the international business and transit via Lebanon. So that is why the government had to resign. However, the government resigning doesn't mean that they are exercising democracy in Lebanon. They had to resign under pressure, mainly under international pressure. We saw Emmanuel Macron coming to Lebanon. We saw a lot of international officials coming to Lebanon saying to the Lebanese officials that this is not acceptable anymore. So the pro-Hezbollah government had to resign to show that they are at least lenient and ready to discuss with the international community. In my opinion, this is a political feint. This is a political tactique they're trying to maneuver. We're in a political deadlock at this stage. They're trying to form a new government. I'm not sure if they're going to succeed in that, especially if they're going to appoint a new government that is similar to the previous ones.
Joy, okay, it's very hard to talk about the present without understanding your past as well. But before going a bit in the past, and just, well, actually listening to your words, I have one question. This revolution that you're fighting for, this reconstruction of Lebanon, are you willing to change the form of government? Are you willing to change the government, or are you willing to change the state itself, like the way the state it's carried?
Beautiful question, Mark. Thank you. First of all, our system is based on a constitution that was amended in 1990, after 15 years of civil war, after 200,000 dead. So we had a compromise as diverse Lebanese communities, I mean Christians and Muslims. The fight in Lebanon was mainly Christian and Muslims. So they had to compromise in the 90s. They wrote down a decent constitution, but the constitution was never exercised, was never respected. Our constitution, first of all, dictates decentralization. We never saw that in Lebanon. Our constitutions dictates the freedom of expression, the freedom of belief, the freedom of press. Our constitution is the first democracy in the Middle East. Our constitution talks about rotation of power in Lebanon. We have officials who've been on their chairs and their seats for more than 30 years. It's like a autocracy. It's not a democracy anymore. So 15 years of Syrian occupation from 1990 to 2015, our constitution was never applied, never exercised. And then 15 years of another occupation, that is the Iran Revolutionary Guard, from 2005 to 2020. So we cannot say that our system is really bad. It is not bad. It is well written. However, there are so many loopholes. There are so many loopholes that are allowing those people in power to interpret the laws the way they want. We don't know what is the delay for the formation of a government. So it might go for like several months. We don't know what is the real quorum for the election of a president. They always fight over the election of a president. We don't know whether the deputies in Lebanon have the right to be absent to a certain session. That is why we saw that in 2014, we couldn't elect the president for 2.5 years because there was a party that was clearly stating to the Lebanese people, either it is our candidate or there are no elections. So our constitution needs to be reformed. We need as part as our group, for our group who's working in the revolution, our aspirations are to go towards a decentralized government. The centralized government in Lebanon is monopolizing everything. We don't have an inclusive economy. We have monopoly. We don't have we don't have a fair deal of opportunity. We don't have equality. That is, we have a lot of religious and ethnical speeches during our elections. So now we need to talk also about the access to information. This is one of the values we're asking for. We want our citizens to have the right to information, to be well informed when they want to vote. At this stage, we are voting on basis of community. We are voting under the influence of a very radical religious speeches that are carried out by candidates. So we cannot talk about a citoyenneté in Lebanon. There are citizens in Lebanon are not exercising their rights and obligations as they should. If you allow me, I would like to go through some of the values that we're fighting for. First of all, in order to reform our state from scratch, we're building a nation from scratch. There's nothing working in Lebanon. It's a totally failed state. So first of all, we need sovereignty. We need our country to be sovereign. Sovereignty means the disarmament and of the militias and stopping the interference of foreign powers in our internal affairs. We cannot operate a government, or we cannot build a new country as long as we have external powers interfering in our daily affairs and obstructing our plans. This is first and foremost sovereignty.
Joy, one question on this: who holds the sovereignty? The people itself, or I mean, it's the people who is the sovereign of or should be
the state. The state should be sovereign. The state should have sovereignty over the entire territory of Lebanon.
Yes, because you mean that without having external, I mean, you mean out of your borders, like other countries or other international institutions that really interfere in your governance inside Lebanon. You mean that?
You know that the biggest player in Lebanon that is unfortunately at this stage, Hezbollah, is clearly stating that they are funded by Iran, they are trained by Iran, or they are subject to a hierarchy, a religious hierarchy that is all blindly loyal to Iran. This is a foreign interference in our affairs. So whenever Hezbollah that is controlling our government needs to take a decision, the rationale behind their decision is always related to a religious plan that originates from Iran. So we lack sovereignty. We have in Lebanon some territories and areas where the government police, where the Lebanese official army cannot enter and penetrate. You don't even know what type of smuggling is happening there, what type of military training is happening there, what type of missile they're trying to fabricate there. So this is what sovereignty means for us. We need our Lebanese official army that is paid by our taxes to be present on the entire territory. And the exclusivity of using violence should be in the hands of the official institutions, not in proxy players or in non-state actors' hands. This is what I mean by sovereignty. Once sovereignty is established in Lebanon, once the official police and army have the sole right to exercise power over the territory, then yes, we can say we are all equal. There are no citizens privileged more than the others. There are no communities being bullying the others because they carry weapons and the others are peaceful. This is sovereignty. Second, we need to talk about freedom. We this country was built on the value of freedom. It was the presence of the Christian community in Lebanon since day zero, 2,000 years ago, that gave us this window to freedom. We came to Lebanon fleeing prosecution, and we stayed in the mountains of Lebanon because we believed in freedom. And this land offered us freedom. So we need to preserve this freedom for the entire population. We cannot have a certain party limiting our freedom of expression, trying to always prosecute journalists because of their opinions. We have journalists being prosecuted because they express their opinion that is opposing the government. This is not acceptable. This is written in our constitution and should be respected.
Mm-hmm.
We need to also respect the human rights. We are founders of the United Nations. We are a country that participated in the drafting of the Human Rights Chart. So we need to respect the Human Rights Chart. And what happened in our revolution has shown that there are dictator-like behaviors in our government, where people were shot with real bullets, where people were abusedly beaten, and this is a very scary indicator if it remains. More than that, we need justice. I believe you heard that last week the International Special Tribunal for Lebanon has issued a decision regarding the killing and the assassination of late Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, who was bombed in 2005 because of his opposition to Hezbollah and to Syria. Mm-hmm. And they indicted one of Hezbollah's main leaders who was behind the planning and the execution of the assassination plot. So we need to stop impunity. In Lebanon, we've been subject to political assassination for decades. Every time you are in the opposition side, you are threatened with assassination. We have the best and the most brilliant talents in Lebanon, young people like us who were assassinated because of their free voices, because of their free speeches. So it's a very good opportunity for us what happened with the International Special Tribunal. However, it's going to be very difficult for us to at least capture and arrest those who were indicted. So in Lebanon, we need justice. We need a separation of power. We need the judiciary to be independent. There are a lot of influences being exercised over the judiciary by the central government, who is appointing the judges and pulling the strings in the judiciary system. So this must stop, and we're asking for it, we're fighting for it. We need transparency. Voters must be very well informed. Once they go to vote, they need to vote on projects, not on feelings, not on reactionate behavior. We need accountability. We have wasted more than $100 billion in the past 20 years. Can you imagine the number we could have built in a beautiful place? We could have built an amazing country with $100 billion. They were all misallocated. They were mostly stolen. They were used by a very small elite in Lebanon that got rich at the expense of the entire population. And we're asking for an international investigation in our monetary Ponzi scheme that happened in Lebanon. We are a bankrupt state. We are a very rich country. We have brilliant minds, but we found ourselves in 2020 bankrupt without a single penny to come up with this mess we are in at this stage. And we're hearing that the central bank is only able to support the funding of basic nutrition in Lebanon just for 2 months. Can you imagine what would happen in 2 months if they cannot provide us with bread? We might go in total chaos. This is accountability. We need to hold the people who bankrupt us accountable. We need equality amongst all communities in Lebanon. Christians and Muslims shall be equal We cannot have one community stronger than the other because it is allied to an external power. We have a community in Lebanon that is allied to Iran and being funded by Iran, trained by Iran, and the rest of us in Lebanon are law-abiding citizens who are willing to pay their taxes, exercise their obligations toward the government, and some fraction of us are not willing to do that. We have some people in Lebanon who don't pay taxes, and they take advantages, and they are privileged over us. So this must stop. And in order to create this equality in Lebanon, we need to go towards decentralization, where each of us pay the taxes on a local basis. We cannot pay our taxes to the centralized government that is controlled by a small elite. We need our taxes to stay at the stage of our local entities. This is very important. And I'm going to end here. We need the empowerment of the individual in Lebanon. We need to base our new building of Lebanon on meritocracy. We need people, the right people at the right place. We have a system in Lebanon that is called clientelism, where you are always appointed to a certain position at the government just because you are affiliated to a certain power. Irrespective of your capacities or of your skills. So we don't have at the level of the government very brilliant people doing a great job because we never applied meritocracy. We need productivity. A majority of us has been living for the previous years on high interest. Any person in Lebanon who has $200,000, $300,000 could have deposited them in the bank and obtained in return a huge rate of interest, which pushed people to just live based on interest without doing any productivity, without working. And it was all a Ponzi scheme. People were not aware of this treatment they were offered. And finally, I'm going to talk about compassion. What happened on August 4th is a beautiful indicator of what our people are capable of doing. What happened after August 4th is a scene, irrespective of the pain, the blood, the destruction. There was something positive about it. I'm really unfortunate to say that. But what happened after the blast of August 4th is people coming together for the first time, maybe, to work together, and they have, for the first time in Lebanon, a common sacrifice, a common pain, a common vision, a common goal. We never had this, we never had that in Lebanon. We never had a common vision, a common goal, a common sacrifice, a common memory. August 4th is going to become a common memory for all of us. August 4th is going to become for us a lesson from now on to behave as new citizens, not to accept any speech, not to believe any slogan, not to accept procrastination, not to accept fraud, and not to accept the misallocation of budgets from now on, not to accept being governed by a militia. So this is like your rewiring the brain of citizens after this explosion. People are changing. People are changing. You can sense this.
Joy, and because we're running out of time, and I think that we have time to two fast questions. One of them, I wanted to, well, one of them, I think Antonio will pose it to you because it's like our main question that we normally do.
Go on, Mark.
But first, I wanted to talk with you because in Lebanon you coexist with two different religions, which are very strong religions. You have Christians and you have Muslims, and actually both Shiis and Sunnis. And actually, I think that the main reason for the civil war that you had from, I think it was from the 1975 to 1990, it was due to religion issues. we had a civil war in Spain, and it was actually earlier than the Lebanese one. It was in in the 30s, beginning of in the 30s, yeah. And we still have issues with that. There is still people that haven't lived a civil war, but we still fight among each other because past things. First thing, is it possible in Lebanon to let it in the past, like the civil war in the past? Then both religions have very strong values. Are these values, or should these values be put in the new state? Because because I think that being a good person is one of the main values that any religion exposes, and it's very hard to understand how a good person or two good persons, even though they face they adopt different religions, they can fight each other, right? And third, all these values that you talked about, do you think that people is willing to fully accept them?
Okay, thank you, Mark, for your question. First of all, yes, we are a complex structure in Lebanon. We have contradictions, sometimes living together. We have two sometimes opposing mentalities living together. Our diversity at some points could have been a blessing for us. It could have been a blessing for us. Pope John Paul II said that Lebanon is a message to the world where Muslim and Christians can live together. However, what we're facing right now is a continuity of a certain behavior from the Muslims and the Christians in Lebanon, where each community is trying to gain power over the other for privileges. And this fight and continuous fight in Lebanon is because we didn't write down and construct a very transparent and clear social contract. It's always like we're shy to discuss our concerns toward the other. It's always like, you know, we're brothers, we're sisters, we're living in a beautiful place, but let us put our differences aside. What should be done is no, let us put our differences before us and let us discuss them point by point. Let us tackle all the issues that were a source of misunderstanding in the past. First of all, every time the Muslims in Lebanon, Sunnis or Shia, or even the Christians in Lebanon, sense that they are at a weaker position in the structure of Lebanon, they tend to empower themselves with an external alliance. So we as Christians, we always look forward to the Europeans and the Americans and the Western community. The Sunnis, they look forward to the Arab world and to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or Turkey, and the Shia, they look forward to Iran. And that is why lately we are discussing in Lebanon the principle of neutrality. We want a state that is neutral. We don't want anything to do with any conflict that is arising in the region between Iran or the KSA, between US or Iran or Russia. We need to put ourselves in a neutral position towards everyone. This is one of the solutions. Second,
is the majority of the people in Lebanon willing to do that? You think?
Yes. The Lebanese Christian Maronite patriarch started this discussion over the solution of neutrality. He has been supported by a wide majority of the population. However, there is a small fraction of Lebanon represented by Hezbollah that refuses this principle because of their strong ties and loyalty to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So they are scared that this principle might limit their privileges in Lebanon because they live on the conflicts that are happening in the region. That is why they get their funds. That is how they get their training. Moreover, in order to avoid this continuous clash between different communities in Lebanon, we're actually more than 18 communities in Lebanon. In order for us to live equally and feel that we are all at the same level of rights and obligations towards each other, we need to go through decentralization. we need to stop paying our taxes to a single centralized government where the communities and the religions are fighting over our taxes. We need to pull these justifications out of their round table. So if we start paying our taxes at the local level, we will deprive our leaders of any communal or religious speech. They won't be able afterwards to tell their communities, listen guys, we're sitting at the level of the centralized government and we're going to try to get our part from the other, our partners in Lebanon. So let us talk to you with a religious speech that is always scaring the people. Our rights are being eaten, our funds are being stolen, the others are coming to kill us. You know, they're always using those tactics to brainstorm the voters. So if you don't give them your money anymore and you pay your money at the local stage, they're not gonna have this tool anymore to brainwash the people. If we apply neutrality, if we apply decentralization, if we apply the constitution that is written so far in a good manner and that should be reshaped and where loopholes should be addressed, I believe that Christians and Muslims in Lebanon can live together. Why not even go towards a more advanced solution? Why don't we talk about federalism maybe? Why don't we decide on having Lebanon where each community feels that it has its own privacy, it can exercise its ethnical behavior the way it wants without having the others interfere in it? Why don't we go to a certain expanded decentralization? So there are many solutions here that are being discussed. It will take time. It's gonna be messy. We're talking about 100 years of differences, 100 years where we have kept aside all our differences without having the courage to tackle them and address our partners in the country very clearly and honestly. We haven't been honest towards each other. We need to be honest to address the concerns. I need, as a Christian, to tell the Muslim, I have concerns towards your behavior or your alliances or your future plans. And the Muslim has the right to tell me, you have plans that are maybe Western. So we need to discuss this very openly. We need to stop lying to ourselves.
That's
and that is the solution.
It is fundamental. Guys, we're out of time, but it doesn't matter because I gotta say that the conversation really worth it. So Joy, as Mark said priorly, we have our last question. That is a question that we always ask to every guest that is here in our show. And I want to ask you, as an individual, not now as an as a political activist, but as an individual, what is the most important value for you? What is the value that should guide the society we live in or the world we live
in? This is a beautiful question. What should happen is on an individual level, in order for me as a Lebanese citizen, the only value, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The only value that drives me is mostly liberty. As long as the human being is free to express his ideas, to express his beliefs, to work the way he wants, as long as he's abiding the laws and the laws of the country where he lives. This is the most important part, because as soon as you give the human being the liberty to manifest and transform his ideas and materialize them, he can do wonders to himself, to his family, and to his country at 3 levels. So what we miss in Lebanon at this stage is the right platform for any individual to exercise and manifest his liberty the way he wants. Let's say I have an idea and I should be free to exercise my idea. I don't have the tools to exercise them. What differentiates a country that is successful from another country that is not successful is the tools that the country provides to its citizens at the individual level. Because there are countries where an individual has an idea and he is offered like loans, and he's being guided by the government. He's being accompanied with justice. If someone attempts to steal his right from him, there is a justice system that protects him. If he needs some support, there is a financial system that grants him a loan. If he sees that he needs a beautiful competition in the market to progress with to advance his product, he will be offered a certain competition. In Lebanon, we do not have that at this stage. Our monies were lost, so we cannot have loans. Our ideas cannot be manifested at this stage because we are always afraid of the injustice. Because let's say someone attempts to steal our rights, we're not sure yet if the judiciary system might grant us our rights. And the most important for an individual to exercise his liberty is prosperity, his peace. We cannot exercise our prosperity in an ambiance or in an environment that is always subject to social unrest, and that is always subject to obscurity and deadlocks and black. I don't know how to describe what's happening in Lebanon when they say that the scene is black. You cannot see behind the scene. What if there is a light after the tunnel?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've had the huge privilege to have here to Mr. Joy Lahoud. Joy, many thanks.
Thank you, Antonio.
Appreciate those reflections, those knowledge, and of course, this information we don't have here actually. No, Mark, we don't have that information here in Spain.
Absolutely, the media, even though we have freedom of press in Spain, like all the news that arrive here are not always all the news in the world, right? So it's been a pleasure, Joy. I also wanted to join thanking you, because I think it's very important and it's very nice that we can have someone that is fighting to build a new state and willing to do to make people cooperate in the same country, talking about the values that you stand for, because that's very important, and that's our mission here, understanding that. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's great seeing you after 10 years. Thank you, Antonio, for your invitation, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Yeah, and to update you on the Lebanese situation.
And as we always say here in Café con Valores, this was created to awake the critical spirit of the people. So now, guys, you have the opportunity to have this information and start reflecting over that. Thank you, guys. Hope to see you soon. Big hugs.
Thank you, Joy.
Have a nice afternoon.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you. Thank you.